Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Marisol Jimenez, and I'm very excited to welcome you to this webinar that's being offered through the Coping with Corona Collective. This series is really an emerging response from our community as we all try to understand what this global pandemic means for us, for our loved ones, and our movement efforts in ways that are still revealing themselves. Rather than waiting for the state to take care of us, we have witnessed communities across the country that have begun creating mutual aid efforts to ensure that people have food, medicine, financial support, and more. And joining us tonight are a group of folks who have been on the leading edge of growing new economies, working outside of capitalism, and building safety nets in our communities. I'm so very grateful to our speakers tonight for taking the time out of what has been a challenging and relentless work on the front lines to be with us and share what they are learning about how to build mutual aid. And mutual aid, not just for this crisis, but as an increasing necessity for our people as we face all that is still ahead of us, even after this quarantine. Ed Whitfield is joining us tonight. He is a lifetime activist and thought leader on building new economies. He attended Little Rock Central High School and began anti-war and civil rights organizing in the 50s and 60s. He is a co-founder of the Fund for Democratic Communities, a private foundation that aims to promote economic democracy and cooperative economics in the US South. We're also joined tonight by the team of Beloved Asheville, who have long stood alongside frontline communities facing homelessness, hunger, over-policing, detention, deportation, and now heightened vulnerability within this global pandemic. They have been leading local efforts to get food, medicine, and housing into the hands of people living outside of the state's social safety net, as far as that is. And then finally, we have Salva Gutierrez, who is representing the Asheville Survival Program, which was a rapid response effort built from the ground up by community members responding to the COVID-19 crisis. ASP has been coordinating farmers, housing, medical supplies, plant medicine, public information, and advocacy around evictions, unemployment, service workers, and more. It has been an incredible collective effort, and I am so glad that they're here to share what they are learning about building mutual aid networks in a time of social isolation and pandemic. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to start by asking all folks who are joining us to please make sure that you mute your microphones. I'll be working the chat if you have questions or comments as we go. Otherwise, I would like to start by inviting Ed Whitfield to share with us about mutual aid, what we can learn from this body of work, and what you're thinking and considering now, given this
context. Hi, everyone. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Naomi Klein, wrote a book called This Changes Everything, about the crisis of capitalism and climate. It's hard to imagine that in the short time since she said that an event would take place that so much embodies that it's unimaginable. I don't know that any of us could have predicted a year ago that we might be sitting in place with almost no traffic flowing, people sitting in their houses, isolating themselves from each other, trying to prevent a pandemic. And it feels a little bit like waiting on a gigantic storm to come, as though that someone's announced a hurricane that's been witnessed off the coast, and you don't know exactly where it's going to hit or when, but you know that when it hits, it's going to be incredibly devastating. And while you may or may not be one of the people to survive, you know that many, many people are going to be destroyed by it. And that in the final analysis, as Marisol has said, we need to be the ones to take care of ourselves. If you think about the effect that Katrina had on New Orleans, then you understand that kind of waiting for the government to come up with enlightened programs to meet the needs of people is probably not the most effective way that we can spend our time, even though we should absolutely certainly continue to make the demands on the government that has continued to collect money from all of us in the many ways that it can do it and accumulate it, and seem to always have enough money to buy another bomber or do weapons research to put the proper amount of time and attention into the things that meet the needs of people. But so this is where we are, sitting here waiting for the storm, and it's not idle time, because an important part of it is to try to make use of every opportunity that we have to advance to a time when human beings are respected and centered the way that they should be. So this is an opportunity, and mutual aid is one of the things that, if properly promoted during this opportunity, can have an ongoing and lasting effect. There were some people writing about, in particular, a guy named Emmanuel Wallerstein was writing several years ago about the current situation with the economy, and he described the theory of change, and he basically said that you cannot expect things to just continue the way that they are, that our system fundamentally doesn't work, it's in crises, and already the early stages of that crisis were evident. And he said he wasn't quite sure what would precipitate, some more cataclysmic event. It could be a severe weather event, it could be an incident of terrorism, it could be like 9/11. It could be something, but could tip things over the edge, a very unbalanced kind of economic situation. And I hadn't thought about the fact that a pandemic would certainly fit that, and now I know, and I think we all do. And this devastating effect. One of the things Wallerstein said was that at a time like this, things won't continue as they are. They're either going to get much worse or they're going to get much better. And that he described something, the butterfly effect in that case, that in a case of a chaotic situation, sometimes small changes in one place can end up having a global effect, transformation, and doing things elsewhere. So that the amount of power that we as people have to be creative and to create solutions that will have long-ranging effect is amplified by the very nature of the chaotic situation we're in crises. One of the things that Naomi Klein talks about a lot is something she describes as crisis capitalism, which is that capitalists will take every event, every cataclysmic event, every disturbance, and try to use it to promote old programs they had lying around just waiting for a time when the people would be sufficiently disoriented enough that they could slide them in. So after Katrina, it was a privatization of schools. And it was depopulation of certain areas and rapidly increased gentrification in New Orleans. And then these terrible ideas just waiting around for implementation. But at the same time, the objective situation that allows some ideas to take hold at some periods of time more easily than they can at other periods of time, something we can have working for us. So that now we have a situation where I think increasingly people are going to understand the needs of collective action and mutual aid kind of activity. And so it's in that context, I'm really glad to be able to talk about some of the things that I think are afoot. The incredible amount of social wealth that has been created has largely gone into the pockets of individuals who use it for their own power and privilege, when that wealth ought to be going into things that meet the needs of people and elevate the quality of life. So that's in the development of infrastructure, and the development of systems, and the development of healthcare, and the development of educational thing, the development of culture and recreation, and the things that make life a better thing to live. And instead of that, we have this incredible accumulation of opulence and wealth by a shrinking number of people, when many people are living more and more precariously day by day. And this precarious existence is one of the things that we're seeing around us right now, when people will suddenly find that much of the food service industry and other kinds of service situations are no longer available to people.
Metro area with 60%.
Okay, I was wondering what I was saying. Like, oh, was that me? Oh, no. That a lot of people will find themselves literally starving to death. They have, no means of supporting themselves. And this is where mutual aid really kind of comes in, because I was thinking the other day that on the one hand, we can go out and try to find wealthy donors who will make some of their opulent wealth something that can go back in the community as an act of charity. On the other hand, we have millions and millions of people who, many of them have needs, and others have resources that they don't need as much as they would have otherwise. For instance, there's a large number of people that used to go out and spend a bunch of money in restaurants and tip waitresses and bartenders and their favorite wait staff that have that money sitting in their pocket right now because those restaurants are closed and they can't spend. So there are resources that now exist widely within communities. So we need to figure out how to accumulate them and put it in a situation where we can democratically and fairly distribute it to people who have needs. And not some means test. I was on a call with some people last night and they were saying, well, you know, you gotta be careful and you should get people to show you a paycheck from their last work to make sure you don't give money to somebody, you know, who was doing something bad. I'm going, people who are doing bad stuff need money too. I mean, that's it's like, you need money because you need money, not because you were doing nice things. And who's to say what's bad? Those of us working in corporate jobs, you know, generating wealth for terrible people that's probably pretty bad too. And so I'm not worried about accidentally doing something that may help somebody whose life choices aren't exactly the same as mine are. But I make life choices every day that, you know, other people wouldn't have any reason to. It's like, no, why do you do that? Why do you eat that? It's like, because I like it. So we need to find a way to distribute resources to people. We need to find a way to collect resources to people. And one aspect of the networking as well, resources in the form of money, but also other kinds of resources in terms of the time and attention we can spend on each other. So folks volunteering to deliver groceries or to pick up medicine, or to walk dogs of folks who have no business outside of the house. There are different things that some of us can contribute in the community. Others have money that's not usable under these conditions and can be distributed to some other people to meet some needs and pay some bills that are absolutely necessary. I mean, banks and financial institutions ought to be suspending the collection of any interest and profits, and suspending the payments toward the principal. And if you have some money to pay on a bill, it ought to go to principal and not to interest. So you reduce the amount of debt that you have, if you have it. If you don't have it, you ought to be able to start again when you do, without the burden of somebody's accumulated interest. So these are some of the things we can fight for, but in the meantime, there are all these things that we can do for ourselves. And that's the essence of the mutual aid. If we have the capacity to collect our own surpluses, wherever they may be, ever so slight as they are, to move away from a kind of a hoarding and individualism mentality, and instead move toward a mentality that elevates and stresses the significance of community, and start building the kind of community we should all want to live in, where we start with the idea that everyone's needs should be met, and that we all have a capacity to contribute to the meeting of our needs as community. I want to say our, I don't want to talk about others' needs, because I don't want us to be othering each other. It's not like two groups of people. Some folk need stuff and other folk got a lot of stuff. We all need things. We all have something to contribute. And that's the very nature of mutual aid. But one of the things we're trying to do here in Greensboro is build some neighborhood groupings that are taking advantage of the fact that they will know better the people in their neighborhood and the people who have needs, and trying to make sure that all of the health safety precautions are engaged in, but that those needs are identified at the same time that we're doing crowdsourcing to accumulate and put into a fund that can be easily accessed, monies to go out. And we might be, all of this is in the beginning part of the discussion, we might be able to identify that as people have needs, we can issue a $100 payment to a number of people till it runs out, and then we'll collect some more. And of course, we would invite wealthy people to contribute to this, but we know this is something that many people who are not wealthy are able to contribute into, again, in the direction of building the kind of communities that we want to live in under this idea of mutual aid, where we need to create a commons of resources that can be shared, can be democratically managed in the interest of meeting people's needs and elevating the quality of life that we live together in community. And I'm sure there's much to be discussed and questions to be asked about some of the specifics of it. Some of them are things that we've already figured out and know. Others are things yet to be figured out. One of the things I would love to see is us to begin doing work and building community groups that are centered around, and then network those groups from community to community within a city. Have an accumulated fund that tries to make some resources be accumulated that can be shared, and distributed by those local groups. Because a lot of people are not going to go to the local community foundation and ask them for anything because they don't trust that that's a secure way to get their needs met. And then from there, try to network the networks that we're building, which includes some mutual aid funds as one aspect of the network, but it's not the only aspect of the network. And there should be a table within a mutual aid fund to talk about distribution, but it's not the only thing that's going on. This is a thing where we don't want to elevate money as the only thing of importance, even though in the structure of our lives, it does have some importance, and we ought to be sharing it as we need to and as we can, again, in the spirit of mutual aid and assistance around building the kind of communities that we deserve to live in. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Ed, for that overview. I'd now like to invite the team from Beloved Asheville to share about its work in closing those gaps that have been left, both before any of this hit. Beloved Asheville has been closing those gaps, but particularly during this public health and economic crisis. So what are you seeing out in the front lines?
I was not here. Okay. Can you repeat the question? I was not here. I went to drink some water.
It's okay. So we would really love to hear what it is that you all are seeing out in the front lines of this. I mean, we know you've always been out there closing gaps, but in this moment, it's a whole new beast. And so what are you seeing out in communities, and how are you serving and closing those with mutual aid?
I think there is a lot of things that is going on. I think there is, so the student we see is all this idea of quarantine, and people talking about stay 40 days inside the home and have social distance, and if you can stay in your home. Like, it's a lot of this stuff going on, and people not thinking a lot of the poor people not have this option. Like, a lot of the poor people have to go to work and make the money because they live far away, like one paycheck. So if they don't have money for the next week, they don't want to have money for groceries or for pay the bill. So a lot of the stuff that we haven't seen is that people don't have information. So the stuff that we have been doing is delivering information to bus stops, to Latinx stores. Like 2 days ago, we went to deliver some information to one of the Latinx stores here in Asheville, and I was talking with the owners of the store, and I was saying today, like, you need to be the people that are more covered, and you need to know more about all these kind of things because you are the person interacting with everybody in our community. So you are you're gonna infect everybody and walk inside the store. And he was saying, I don't know if this is real or no. I don't know if the virus is real. And I was saying to him, like, it's a lot of people that have been dying, so you must know and accept that this is real and take responsibility and take care of the community, because if you take care of you right now, you are taking care of the community. And this is crazy, he was telling me then a lot of the people that came to the store and having coffee inside in the store, then he having asked the pastor, because a lot of the Latinx community is a Catholic community, and this it's something insane for me. I asked, he asked one of the people that came, then why they don't use gloves, or why they are not taking care of the onset, and they say, oh, I asked the pastor in my church, and they told me that if I pray, everything is gonna be okay. So this is the reason for people even are not using gloves, and they don't believe. So this is the thing, like, everywhere that we haven't go, like, it's no information in the ground. So the information is a privilege that people like us have with internet and with cell phones. Only a lot of people that don't have access to internet, and people are still using something they call the Obama phone, that is the government phone, not have internet. So it's not a lot of information in the ground. And in the same time, it's a lot of necessity. So other of the things that we have been doing is delivering food to different places with elders. And they are very worried. So they are the people then, so it's like 1 month ago, they was using like the thing, how you call it? The mask, and they was using the gloves, and they no want to be close to me. And I completely understand that. Only the people that are very afraid are the elders in our community. And I think that it's very hard, because you see young people hanging out like until 1 week ago, like people still going to bars and restaurants, and one of our friends in downtown, they live in one of the elders' apartments, have a post in Facebook and was saying like, it's crazy then it's a group of people, 30 people outside of our building, when it's a lot of elders watching from the window, scared even to go out. So you think like this week, like we have been sharing food with they for 3 years. We want to have 3 years, then we have been sharing food in this apartment, elder apartment. So this week they said that they don't want nobody to come no more to the apartment because they are too afraid. So like I say, it's a lot of, it's not a lot of information in the ground. And like even right now, like the study I'm doing right now is sharing the updates of the city about what is going on, and they are doing this now in Spanish. So we make a special page, then we can be sharing this information to the people that need to know, they need to have the information. The city sharing the information in a pages that are completely in English. So the only portion they have in this page in Spanish is these updates. So it's not a lot of people that watch these updates. So we create a page, then we can talk about our culture, then we can talk about our language, about our flavors, and later we talk about all this information that need to be in the hands of people that need to know this information. So right now we are moving this information. Like now I have 100 people watching the live stream in the same time that we are doing the video. And like I say, it's because we are in the ground too much. Like we know the language, so what is going in the ground, and not only in one of the corners. Like we usually walk in different of the struggles, and for us, every struggle tests like the same struggle. And this is for we are always came with different ideas and solutions that we can mobilize to the ground and we know like the student Ed was saying, like we really believe that the only way that we can change something is if we learn how to share, because it's a lot of resorts. Like we see, like yesterday when we was in downtown, we were sharing stuff with people then still in the streets. Even then, people are talking about quarantine. People still in the streets. Like was full of people in the street last night. So and you think, people that don't have homes, and in the same time, it's empty hotels. Like they are sleeping in the branches when it's empty hotels. This is insane. So this is the thing, like I was saying, like because we work in different part of the city and we test different struggles in the city. We know that all this is together and it's about profit. Like you were saying, it's about people that want to make money. It's always about money. It's never about people. Like the mission hospital that you sell to be a profit now. Like it's about profit. They don't care about the people. And you see the president saying that he wants to open in Pascua. In Easter, it's Pascua in Spanish. So he want to open in Easter. It's because these people don't care about us. These people don't care about us. About the people, they care about make profit and make money and make more money. Yeah, and if people die, no matter, because these are the people that is gonna kill. So I think then the power of all this, then I see, because I see a big opportunity in all this situation that is going on right now. The power of us to learn there is the community. Like usually the other day somebody came and knocked the door. Like it was a Sunday in the morning. Somebody was knocking the door. I was thinking, I hope they no came to talk to me about church or about God. Was too early this day. So I opened the door and people was talking to me about Bernie Sanders and how good is Bernie Sanders. And I was thinking, I don't believe in politicians. I believe in community. So I was thinking like, I know that we have the solutions and I know that we have the resources. So we're not going to be waiting for federal money to come to the ground when we can be doing something right now. And this is something we have been doing all these days. For 1 month, we have been making people ready to what is coming. And like I said, even the NISA strategy, what is going on, I see a big opportunity for us to become a very strong community and to really believe that we are the solution and not wait for nobody of this politician or not wait for nothing of this federal money to save us, because we have to be.
That's right. I think this is a very powerful moment in terms of one of the things that we see is something that you cannot see with the naked eye that has now shaken every major empire on the planet, from China to Europe, now to the United States. And I think it's a revealing moment. People have talked about it being an apocalyptic moment, which really just means unveiling. And I think it is unveiling the systems for what they are. Like we've seen throughout our time on the ground, is that the people, we're sacrificing Black and brown people and Black and brown bodies, as we always do. When we go into tiendas and people have nothing, they have no information, they have no hand sanitizer, no gloves, no mask. We're sacrificing people. We're sacrificing people on the streets, as we've been fighting since Monday, March 16th, to move unsheltered people into community, into compassion, and to being cared for. All of these things are revealing, because now the streets are empty, except for people who only get to live in the streets all the time. So we see this time and time again. We see our elders being sacrificed now, and we hear this at the highest level. We'd rather sacrifice our elders than give up our economy. And so we see the addiction that is capitalism and white supremacy unfolding yet again. But this is a fulcrum moment. And so as people that live in mutuality, understand the way that things work. We've now seen so many Black women who are dying now from COVID-19. And this is again revealing of what is happening, and the inequities of the system if we pay attention. And we can also see these mutual networks rising and the power that we have in our hands. And so I'm grateful. I see so many here who've been participating in this work for a long time together, and the spirit of community that is powerful, and what can happen when we begin to move and exercise our political will. And it makes us so strong. I see Carmen and Ybarra on here, and we just got fare-free buses, and Carmen's been a part of that fight, as we have for a long, long time. And suddenly we have the political will to have fare-free buses, like literally overnight, in a time where we were told we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it. And so we can do it. And that's the power of community, is that the power is in our hands, more so than ever. And so what we can do together. I think Carmen may be on the line, so I'm going to turn it over to Carmen if she's here. She may not have had technical difficulties.
I'm here.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, so we've been doing what we can to advocate for the drivers and to keep the passengers safe. They are working tirelessly, and they, I think, are the real heroes right now, getting the city around. We are trying to get them, as protected as we can, and making sure that they have, as much safety and precautions as they can utilize. So, I mean, I just urge you, like, if stuff comes up, like for drivers, that you all can really push that forward for us.
Thank you. I'm going to allow time for us to have space for questions and discussion after our last speaker. So finally, I would like to invite Selva Gutierrez, who's representing the Asheville Survives Program, to share what is happening with what really has been a rapid response organizing effort on Facebook, primarily is where it started, to start housing a clearinghouse of all the different mutual aid efforts that were happening around Asheville and the Western North Carolina area. So Selva, can you share some of what you have been seeing happening through Asheville Survives Program? What is this mutual aid network looking like? And what are some of the lessons we're learning about, for those of us that our impulse and is to run out and be in the community with our people, and then we're in this situation where quarantine seems to be the way to take care of people as well. What are you all seeing around how you're navigating that with this network across the mutual aid sort of landscape right now?
Hi everybody, I'm Selva and I use she and they pronouns. I'm somewhat new in town, so some of you may or may have not seen me yet. So the Asheville Survival Program, so there's a couple of different pieces to it. So there is a group, a Facebook group trying to share information. So like, how do we connect with each other? How do people understand what are the needs of different people and how we can provide those needs? So that can be from like, oh, now I am home and I have time and I want to start learning how to grow my own food because I recognize the value of that. Can folks like direct me to how to do that? Or, hey, I have a bunch of hand sanitizer. Can I, like, who do I give it to? How do I do this? So there's like a little hub in terms of that. But a big piece of what's been going on like underground is we have recognized that there are some folks that should not be going out or cannot go out of their house right now. So for folks that are elder, for folks that are immunocompromised but do have housing, the like best thing for them and for all of us, for the system, for like everything, is for them to stay home. And so what does it look for those folks to be able to stay home? So we have been in a collaborative process with a bunch of folks across the South as well, understanding what does it look like to be able to deliver some needs in the safest way possible. And so what we've gathered is like through research around how does the virus live, how long does the virus live, where does the virus live, and how does it get connected to people, like to humans. We have been gathering donations. We have a space where we are decontaminating these donations. So we understand that the virus lives in the air, which is where it gets to the people, like into people's things. And then we touch ourselves and then we get infected. So we are bagging things and leaving things for 72 hours. And then we're also putting information inside this. So like, as Poncho was saying, like folks don't have information. We have been adding information as far as like, how do folks protect themselves? What are some of the recommendations? What are the symptoms that they need to be looking for? Like things so they are also aware, because we don't know what's going on their end. And so the way this has been working is we have a phone number that we initially gave to folks at PVA, this phone number. So the bulk of the work for now has been in PVA. We did share it with some other folks, but in like a mouth-to-mouth way, because we're working with donations. So we don't have like massive amounts of things and we don't want to overpromise. But we have a phone number, people leave messages, we call them back, and we gather some information as far as like what are the needs and what is their risk level. And we share with people, like we're really trying to do this for folks that really should not be leaving the house at all, like folks that are at high risk. And a lot of people tell us voluntarily say, you know what, I'm not one of those folks, it's okay, like don't come to me. And then like we cancel that order, for example. But yeah, folks call us, they leave a message, we call them back, we ask exactly what they need. So we don't give them things that they don't need also, because like that seems useless. And we package this like individual family packages. And we do this decontamination process, and then we have a team of drivers that only do that, so they're like separate from everything and they don't engage with anything else. And we deliver them outside of their house. We unwrap the first layer without touching the second layer, and then we leave, and then the folks come out and pick them up. And so we don't have contact with the people either. So we're like trying to minimize as much as we can any kind of risk. We understand this also, like there's a component of harm reduction here. Like we cannot fully guarantee that there's not going to be some risk. But between those folks going to the supermarket or going to pick up in like a more public space and us doing this like whole process, we feel like it's along the lines of harm reduction. And so we are, yeah, that's what we've been building and working. And there's been also connection with Asheville Solidarity Network. They are involved. A lot of the folks in Asheville Solidarity Network are also involved with Asheville Survival Program. And those folks are more working, Asheville Solidarity Network are working around demands to try to, like, for example, if folks cannot work, then we cannot pay rent, we cannot pay utilities, we cannot pay bills. And so how does it look like to freeze those, the push for those things? So there's also like an arm, even though it's separate, but like pretty together, of folks that are also doing some push around demands and yeah, creating some more safety nets so folks can actually stay home and take care of themselves and take care of their families and not be worrying about how do I pay my next bill and how do I pay my rent, which is in so many people's minds. Some folks, like Poncho said, like a lot of folks are still working, but some folks have been forced already to stop working. And a lot of those folks are part of our teams. Like a lot of the folks that are doing this like mutual aid project are folks that were laid off recently and have time at their house. And all of the work has been online. So all of the tools that we can imagine have been utilized because we're not seeing each other like in person. We are keeping distance all from each other. So we can also try to keep ourselves safe and do our part in like community public health. So yeah, and then from here, like the possibilities, like everyone mentioned, like I echo that this is a crisis on top of a crisis. And I also for me, a lot of people's responses are coming from a place of them being affected at this point. Like a lot of the things that we're seeing are things that people have been struggling all the time. Like, how do I pay my next bill? How do I get food? Like these are things that are like for millions of people in this country, like they're every day. And we are having a lot of new folks coming into that same space of like, oh shit, how do I do this for next month? And so we're seeing a lot of like somewhat like recognizing more and like integrating more what it looks like to be in a tough spot. But yeah, this is a crisis on top of a crisis, and I think that we have become accustomed to the violence that the systems bring to us and not realizing that like this pandemic, this moment is not going to kill more people than the systems kill all the time. And we are somewhat passive around it. And so like, I think that a beautiful phrase that's coming out around this time is, if we do this right, we'll never go back to normal, because it's never been normal. Like it's not okay. It's never been okay. So I think that a beautiful possibility is like, how do we continue this work, not from a place of emergency, but from a place of healing and from a place of doing what I think our bodies really want to do, which is care for each other and work with each other.
I forgot I was muted. Thank you so much, Selva. So at this point, I also want to recognize that we have somebody who joined us, Zev Friedman, who's with Cooperation Western North Carolina. Thank you so much for joining in the call. I wanted to invite you to have a few minutes to share the neighborhood organizing that you all have been coordinating.
Thank you so much, Marisol. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here in the presence of all of you doing all this really life-giving work. Thank you all so much for doing this and sharing this evening. And we, Cooperate WNC is this aspiring regional mutual aid network that we've just been going for 2 years, but during that time we've been developing kind of an ecosystem of cooperativism and mutual aid in 22 counties of Western North Carolina. So it's a little bit of larger geographical scope than just Asheville and Buncombe County. And definitely there are some kind of focus points where people are more organized in different parts of WNC. But we think that this is an important piece of the puzzle of how to get mutual aid going on in our communities by having a network that allows us to share resources and knowledge a little more broadly than we can at just the hyper local level. And so we've been doing lots of different things, getting savings pools going so that small groups of people can pool money to help each other start cooperative businesses and build homes and do other things we need to do in our communities. We've been doing stuff around land access and regenerative agriculture, and around different ways of kind of asset-based community development and communities researching ourselves to learn about what our needs are of our fellow community members. And then as soon as this crisis hit, like all of us, we said, okay, how do we pivot and really get into gear to serve the needs of the moment? And so what we've landed on, we've been having calls every day, which, by the way, if there's anyone here who wanted to come and hang out with us some on those calls and get involved and lend your voice as to how we should be prioritizing energy, that would be very welcome. But we're having these calls each day, and a group of between 6 and 10 organizers showing up each day for that. And what we've decided is that a big focus needs to be working with neighborhood organizers who are already working at that scale, kind of like 20 to 40 people who live close to each other within walking distance, and that a lot of the tangible stuff is happening at that level with elder care and food supplies and medical response and making sure people are safe. But that there are some ways that neighborhoods could be sharing between each other and getting access to resources and skills that we can't do on our own. And so that's what this call that we're doing tomorrow evening is focusing on, from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Is a neighborhood organizing skill share for neighborhood scale mutual aid. And that'll be a lot about skills for doing the neighborhood scale organizing, and also some about the different neighborhood organizers networking to work together and be in communication with each other. Yeah, thanks Marisol for putting that up, that link to our page. And we have a website too, which I'll add in there in a moment. So I'll stop there, and I'm just going to post an article to that Delia, maybe some of you know her, translated for us. That's on disaster cooperativism, kind of responding to what the point Ed making at the beginning about disaster capitalism and how the capitalists are all set up to take advantage of our social support systems and transform them to profit-driven ones now, but how we can have cooperative structures in place for actually using this moment of opportunity for cooperativism and shared wealth and power. So a little article in Espanol on that I'll paste in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seb. And thank you to all of our speakers. I hope that in listening, it's clear why it's so valuable to have this time with them and learn about what is happening, what is needed, and what this means for us and the ways that we organize ourselves moving forward. So at this point, I'm gonna open up the chat to, if you have a question, a comment, an addition, you can throw it in the chat, and then I'll go ahead and call on folks as those questions come through. Okay. So it seems like we are quiet on the chat, on the questions. I've thrown up links to all the Facebook pages of each of these groups. Here we go. Emma, if you would like to share your question.
Hey y'all. Wait, I can have a video. Hi. Thank you so much. This is really great. I feel like many people, been just like stuck in the internet scroll of trying to know what's going on and the best ways to plug in. And I really appreciate you taking the time on top of doing all the work you're doing to fill us in. I understood from Zev that maybe the best way to get plugged in for next steps was to join those calls, but I was wondering if for Beloved and the Asheville Survival Program, Zaba, what are the best ways, if any, for people to get plugged in to support?
Hi, folks. So for us, Asheville Survivor Program, so I would say that there's a ton of things that can be done from home. So we are doing the callbacks. We are translating as much as we can everything, or a lot of the stuff that we put out. We are, I don't know, like putting information together for folks. Like there's like a lot of things that can happen. We're calling to try to get resources. Like there's a lot of things that can be done from home. For folks that want to plug in, I would say that the best way would be through the Facebook group and sending a message. And then one of the admins would like guide you to somebody that's on that group that doing like, if you say something specific as far as like what you think you would like to do, or like what is your time, what is your like capacity, or what are your skills. We also, and then on the other hand, there's, so that's a Facebook group, and then there's a page that it's at ASP Donate, which is the one for like, if somebody has a bunch of food that wants to donate, then we can like arrange for pickup or drop off. We have bins across town also that we have put up with the idea that like we should not be engaging with each other. And I can share those with Marisol, and maybe Marisol can share them. But basically we have at Montfort Community Center, at West Village Market, at Asheville Dispensary, at the Wedge, at a CVS, at the Family Justice Center, at a pharmacy in Weaverville. Like we have these bins that people can also drop off stuff, like food and perishable and non-perishable items. And then there's a Venmo to donate as well, which is, let me see what the Venmo is.
I'm about to post that for y'all. I got you.
Oh, perfect. There you go. So yeah, so then there's also a Venmo in terms of like donating financial support. And that financial support, like we are spending it really carefully because again, we don't necessarily understand what's coming next and like how this is gonna unfold. And we are receiving a good amount of donations to supply the folks. And again, the folks are being really responsible. Like people that are calling us, if they don't feel like they are in need, like that they should not leave their house at all, like they are telling us that they're okay. And folks are also just sharing like exactly what they need. Like I need baby food, I need cat food, I need diapers, I need some rice, and you know, like, and we like put that together. So in that sense, like we feel like we are sharing exactly what folks need. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. Others who have questions, comments, thoughts? I see here, Carmen, if you can hear me. I don't see Carmen on here at all, but Carmen has been trying to speak. Okay. Carmen, if you can hear me, I'm sorry we couldn't figure out the tech to get you a microphone.
Oh, I'm here.
No, Carmen Ramos Kennedy.
Oh.
Thank you, Carmen. Well, you all, I appreciate so much that you were willing to jump on this call in the midst of what must be an exhausting time to be doing all of this organizing, to be on the ground, and to be also holding the same grief and fear and anger that everybody else has been carrying, but also carrying it for so many others. It's really incredible, the work of mutual aid that has been happening, and it gives me so much hope to see the efforts that you all have been coordinating. But then also when I think about things that have been emerging all over the place, there are worker-owned cooperatives in Morganton that have now changed their entire production line to start producing masks for folks who are in medical care but not treating COVID patients. We have farmers that are starting to change their entire business models to create mutual aid farming capacity. It's just really incredible to see the community response. And so knowing that the state never wanted us to be okay, but that we do, and that we have the capacity, we have the will, it gives me a lot of inspiration and hope for the work ahead. And so I really want to lift up that these organizations need support. They need on the ground support, they need word of mouth support, and they also need actual resources. So these webinar series are all free webinar series that are being offered. However, each one of them is focusing on a certain place where you can direct your funds, direct your resources. And so tonight, if you have resources to share, please direct them to Beloved Asheville at www.belovedasheville.com. You can also make donations to Asheville Survival Program through their Venmo at AVL Survival on Venmo. And then I imagine, Zev, I'm sorry that we weren't able to add you in at this point, but I'm sure that if you go to the Cooperate Western North Carolina Regional Mutual Aid Facebook page, you'll also find places where you can offer your support to their efforts. Again, let me check messages really quick. Okay, so we do have a couple questions that I will put out there. One is, what do you all think is a way to combat the narrative that is now being put out that elders should sacrifice their lives for the economy? Do you see this impacting us in North Carolina?
Our elders are often asked to sacrifice themselves, and I think that we need our elders, and we need to become a culture that honors our elders once again. And it's something that we've held in sacred trust. We've spent years working with elders, and in this time particularly, I think I see mutual aid networks rising to honor elders and the sacredness of the role of elders within our culture. Even as we see Empire willing and able to sacrifice our elders on the altar of the almighty dollar. And so I think that we are the people.
As an elder, I'd like to speak to that. Like what? I think that, when they say to rescue the economy, it's so interesting that I don't believe that's what they mean. I think that there's some folks who would be willing to sacrifice elders to try to save capitalism. But I think that the issue here is, how do we build an economy that meets the need of all of the people? How do we build an economy where the accumulated value goes to, again, meet people's needs and elevate the quality of life? And how do we, respect and build an economy that will serve the needs and interests of the people who haven't even been born yet? I mean, not only are they talking about sacrificing elders, they're talking about sacrificing our great-grandchildren with the climate change stuff, where in order to deal with the short-term gains and immediate profits and comfort of the capitalists who are around now, their short-term thinking has them sacrificing the future and the past. Nah, I'm not falling for that. I think this is about an effort on their part to rescue a dying system, and that we need to help put it in its grave by building the kind of community-related response that recognizes that, the accumulated wealth of communities and the people needs to go to benefit the people themselves, not remain in the domain of a handful. So all of the collective cooperative activities and the mutual aid work itself, are about a new future, a future that respects all of life and humanity, rather than sacrificing some sector I mean, at one time it's like, well, let's just sacrifice the slaves in order to preserve the economy. Now it's let's sacrifice the elderly to preserve it's not the economy, it's the system of power and privilege of a few that is being called out. And our answer to that ought to be a firm and resolute, hell no. We're not going to do that. We're going to look for building the kind of future of a community that respects everyone in it and those people who haven't even been born yet in the future. And that's the challenge in front of us.
And I guess if we really want to sacrifice something, sacrifice capitalism, sacrifice money, and not sacrifice people, because they always have been sacrificed people all the time in profit. So it's time to sacrifice the other side, and because you think this virus was expanded by people that have money, and now the people more affected right now is poor people. So probably it's better option to sacrifice capitalism and sacrifice money, and yeah, it's a lot of craziness.
Thank you so much for your responses. We're going to try a technical workaround so that Carmen Ramos Kennedy, who's a member of the Beloved Asheville team, also former president of the Asheville NAACP, or Buncombe County NAACP. So I have her on speaker so that she can make a comment, and hopefully this will work.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, thumbs up.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I know we're not really talking a great deal about advocacy tonight, but as a part of the Beloved team, I've been involved with the North Carolina United for Survival and Beyond group that was convened by Blueprint North Carolina. Over 123 organizations and 894 individuals today presented our platform to the governor. And, you know, I understand from our side this is going to be talked about in depth tomorrow, but just very quickly, it really is about the people putting forth their demands to the government, which, you know, expanding Medicaid, protecting incarcerated people, protecting our immigrant community, freedom from hunger, freedom to not have to worry about paying mortgages and rents and evictions. There's a list, but I would hope that you would, if your name isn't or your group isn't a part of it, that you would go to the North Carolina People's page, North Carolina People's Platform for Social and Economic Survival and Beyond, and sign on. This is important. The advocacy piece is really important. This is the perfect opportunity to be advocating large and loud. So please do. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I'm so glad that we were able to figure out a way to get your voice onto the call.
It's been very frustrating.
I'm so sorry.
Going over here like, hey. Thank you, Marisol.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining tonight's call. I'm sure that there are so many questions, ideas, connections that still have yet to be made. I have every intention of offering this platform throughout this journey into the unknown that we're all in. I'm so grateful to all of you who have been on the ground doing this work for as long as yes, we have a question from Sunrise Asheville. We have one quick question from Sunrise Asheville.
Okay, cool. Thank you. My name is Alex, and I appreciate this call and all the work that y'all have been doing. I just wanted to quickly talk about what Carmen was just saying about the NC United for Survival and Beyond. We, as Sunrise Asheville, signed on to that and have been helping run that campaign to pressure the governor. And as Sunrise Asheville, we are designing something similar on a city level and hoping to start a campaign like pressuring the city and county governments to respond to this crisis, very similarly to like what's happening on the state level, and just to like use the money that they somehow, the $100,000 that they somehow found, to house people, to end rent or to freeze rent, all these demands that we're talking about. So yeah, we're designing a campaign to put pressure on the city and county government to do that here, and just wanted to put that out there that that's happening, and would definitely really love to partner with everybody here on that if people are interested.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Appreciate it very much. So yes, a whole conversation has been recorded. As soon as I can turn these around, I'm gonna make sure that these are made available online. Please use these recordings however you like, post them on your Facebook page, send them to your subscribers, whatever you need to get the word out about the work that you're doing and the support that you need. I deeply, deeply respect the resilience and the response and the quickness with which folks in our community have been organizing. I hope that that this conversation has been helpful for you. It's been helpful for me, just to plan it. And stay well, stay connected, and stay hopeful, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.